not seem to be on my phone at least. Well, I was gonna suggest anyway. So that's,
It's on now, George.
there you go. Thanks, Mark.
Now it's gone. Maybe it'll
No, that's it.
With audio?
No, it says thanks for watching.
Really?
It was up a second ago and then it just faded out.
Oh, let me try it again.
It's back on, George. You may have to stay there. It's your aura that keeps it working. It seems to be working.
Okay.
Sound off. Maybe just when I set my phone down.
Is it still working on you? Yours one?
It was, the second I just closed it.
With audio, right?
Sometimes it'll pop out.
Test 1, 2, 3.
I don't have it up anymore. Hold on just a second, George.
Yeah, we still got 1 minute, so.
Okay, I see pictures. Somebody want to say something? I got mine on. Sound off. Testing. 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 Oh, it's working. Testing. Testing. I'm not sure it's working, George. Oh, I think it is now. There we go. Oh, there's this really long delay. I forget that. It's good.
Delay.
I assume Newellbrook?
Yes,
Okay, we
yeah,
got
I'm
a,
David.
what's that?
I'm David.
Okay, we got a couple of things administrative things that
Yeah, absolutely.
we'll call you up here. Sure. I think it's time. Okay, so welcome to the Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 Town of Durham Planning Board meeting, regular meeting. So we have a quorum. There are 4 members here. And we've done the roll call. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please stand and join me for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to acceptance of meeting minutes for the April 2nd, 2025 meeting. Any comments on or recommended changes on the April meeting minutes? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve or reject.
A motion to accept as presented,
A second, as amended?
as presented.
Oh, presented. All right. Okay, do I have a second?
I wasn't here, so I'm not.
I wasn't here either.
I will second it. Can we do it with just 2 votes? All those in favor, please raise a hand. 2-0. Okay, we're on to informational exchange on non-agenda items, starting with town officials. Mr. Thabars.
I have nothing new to add other than what's on the agenda tonight.
Holy smokes. Okay, we're just gonna go fast. Any residents want to talk about something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, non-residents, seeing none, we'll move on to no continuing business and new business. Request for conditional use approval. Go ahead, come on up, and I'll read this and then ask you to give your name and address.
Yes, absolutely.
So request for conditional use approval for a seasonal outdoor wedding and event venue at 335 Newellbrook Road, map 5, lot 61. There will not be public comment taken. So, sir, if you would your name, address, and your relationship to the project.
My name is David Thompson. My address is 335 Norbrook Road, and I'm the owner, I guess the member of Castle Rock Development that owns the property.
Okay? So you're a representative of them, okay?
Yes.
Mr. Tabarge, would you give a brief, your introduction, and then we'll have you make any comments you want to add to that,
Yes,
please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the applicant is seeking a conditional use approval for a seasonal wedding venue. And under the current land use ordinance, there is not a permitted or a conditional use specified in the table of land uses. So it will fall under section 3.1.31, which has other commercial services not otherwise listed. So that is how the town has dealt with these types of uses that are not specified in the land use table. And those can be approved as a conditional use. The applicant owns a 47 acre farm on the south side of Millbrook Road and is proposing to use an open field for the seasonal wedding venue. There is, as indicated in the agenda packet notes and photo in those notes, an existing DOT approved temporary entrance, and speaking to the code officer, I understand that that was approved for wood harvesting purposes. And I think based on the applicant's submissions, that is intended to be the access for the wedding venue, which will be going back in the field. I've suggested that the board try to clarify what the surface from that point will be going through, as indicated in the photo, back through the woods. There's kind of a trail through there. Based on the diagrams, my understanding is that is how the guests will enter the wedding venue. I did encourage the applicant to get in touch with the fire chief. Fire chief went out and indicated that if he has to access the property in an emergency, he would go through the driveway by the existing house rather than through that. So he apparently, based on his memo that's in your packet, is satisfied that he can access it for emergency purposes. I also indicated the board should consider and inquire whether or not the temporary MDOT permit for the current curb cut is still valid, and if not, what the applicant intends to do in terms of getting a permanent MDOT entrance permit, which is required. And I did, based on the applicant's submissions, prepare a set of draft findings that you can consider when you get to a decision.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson, if you would, you heard a couple of comments
Yes.
that George made, but tell us a little bit about what you want to do there. How you're gonna do it.
Speaking of the driveway, or the entranceway there, I did contact Van Terrell of the Maine DOT, and he confirmed what you said, that it was certified for forestry use only. So we have put in an application for a change of use, and they said they've got 15 days before they have to respond.
Okay,
So I'm waiting on that response. Excuse me. But I included the application they had. Plus, I also sent them the same packet that you have, so that they could kind of see where we're at. It's a pretty basic plan as far as the entranceway through the forest. Currently, it's 20 feet wide. It's more than, I couldn't measure vertically. I mean, it's more than 18 to 20 foot tall. Excuse me. But I do want to, once, hopefully if approved, I'm wanting what's under the trees there, I'm wanting to fill that in with stone and make sure it's a good solid base, maybe some fabric, just to keep it from, because right now it's holding a little bit of dampness. And it's just, I wouldn't drive through it yet. But I didn't want to sink a bunch of money into it if it wasn't what was approved. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as the entrance onto the roadway, you know, it's I think I measured it at 24 feet wide. So the entrance itself, you know, with the culvert is plenty wide enough. Matter of fact, that's where our garbage is picked up.
okay. the MDOT, I've worked with him once before, he'll tell you how wide
Yes,
that can be
Yeah.
and what you can do inside the right of way.
right. Yeah, they're gonna do a drive-by, I guess, because I've got to mark it with flags, he said, so that they can actually come out and take a look at it.
Okay. Okay, in that case,
Oh, and one more thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I brought, excuse me, all of my butters. I did, I gave them all the information and I was, according to the website, I was supposed to bring these out to y'all. The signed copy showing that I did notify all of them.
okay,
So I don't know who to give this to.
just give it to Mr. Thamar, just leave it there, we'll collect it up afterwards, so,
Yeah, there's, all of my butters have signed copies as well.
okay. Well, for the board members, my thought on this is, before we get too far into it, is, because of the impact on neighbors, I appreciate the fact you
Yes.
notified them. But I think this, in my opinion, this should require, we should do a public hearing. Because you're talking about music, fireworks,
No fireworks.
no fireworks?
No fireworks, no.
Okay,
Yeah, music would stop at 9:30 p.m.
I saw that, and then we needed one of your comments on the findings of fact was you would have them if they were licensed fireworks people.
Well, that would be, I'm not big on fireworks. That was one of my wife's things. If they ever do need fireworks, they have to be licensed.
Okay, which is
Yeah.
not the same as no fireworks, so
Right.
when we get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So fireworks and no fireworks, we still have some kind of music, noise going
Yes.
until 9:30.
Mhm.
So my thought would be to do a public hearing at our June meeting.
Okay.
We'll see if
Yeah.
does everybody agree with that, or is that? Okay.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
think it's worth it.
reasonable.
Okay. So quick vote then to hold a public meeting until our June meeting, or have it at our June meeting?
What's the date on that?
Just looking for that. Calendar.
4th?
So June 4th would be a public hearing, and so Mr. Thabars can tell you what you need to do for announcements and the deadline to get them out to the abutters and all that other kind of
Okay.
stuff. I know you've done some development, have you participated or seen a public?
I have not. No, I've not participated in a public meeting.
Okay, so for the public meeting, your neighbors or others who have an interest will have the opportunity to speak in favor of against, or against the project.
Okay.
And we'll take in what they say into consideration.
Yeah.
So that will push the final vote to at least the June 4th meeting, okay? So what I would like to do then, board members, is to go through the findings of fact here and the performance standards, and we won't vote on them this evening, but we can give Mr. Thompson feedback on any concerns that we have that he can think about, be prepared for the next meeting, such as the MDOT permit. So we will water through the I guess, conditions of approval, thank you. And, so Mr. Thompson, if you will bear with me, there's a kind of a long list of conditions of approval, and we'll go through those, and I know, Mr. Thabars prepared a formal draft based, I think, probably on your input.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I just have a procedural question.
please ask.
So Castle Rock Development is the owner of the property?
Yes.
Is that you
That's
or is
me.
it a group of people?
No, it's me.
It's just-
it is a single member LLC.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm curious as to whether or not we need a letter from the owners.
No, no,
Mr.
it-
Thompson
Good
can
que-
represent.
Yeah.
Question.
I'm the only member.
Okay, thank you.
Fair question. Any others before we get into the findings of fact? Okay, so we've got a list of them. I think you have responded there as well, but, so the first one up is the proposed, public health impacts, the proposed use will not create, and so we won't vote on these until the next meeting, I guess, what I started to say there. So, the findings are portable toilets, sanitation service will be contracted, by the event organizer using licensed vendors.
Yes.
So that begs the question, I think, of what is your role? And obviously you're the landowner, or
Mhm.
Castle Rock is.
Yes.
So you've got a piece of open land out there. Are you putting up a tent that they rent or?
We will not provide any tents or restroom facilities. Their event organizer, whoever is a wedding planner or whoever, they will have to contract their own tents. And literally, we're just providing a space.
Okay. Okay, so that may lead to questions as we're going through this. And will you have a contract with them?
Yes.
That says you're responsible to get all this stuff and pick up trash, all
Yes.
that other kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
And, okay, so any of the other members have questions on the first finding of fact that there are A through E? Seeing none, I guess the other thing I would say on that is, the location of the porta potties, I think, is important, and the direction they face,
Yes.
and all that other kind of stuff. But it is a one event porta potty.
Right, correct.
You don't have to worry about pumping it after 3
Nothing's
events.
staying.
Okay,
It's still a working farm. So literally, this would just be one event per week or per weekend, I should say.
okay. So the next one, traffic safety impacts. The proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing and foreseeable traffic in its vicinity, and this feeds into, is off of Route 9, Newellbrook Road. So, board members, any comments on the findings that are there?
Granted, that, a lot of that is related to parking, and you had mentioned about your concern about that one low area.
Under the trees.
And if this is approved, at what point would you be addressing that?
Oh,
particular area?
immediately. That would be my first concern.
Okay,
Because the entryway, my proposed entryway, which goes under the tree line there and into the back, what I call the back meadow, that is where parking will be, and that's also where my proposed porta potties will be. My trash dumpster will be moved back there once I get all that approved,
okay.
because I use private trash services.
What does the maximum of 50 vehicles per event include?
That would just be your guest. I mean, no more than 50 vehicles. I can't imagine, we're just wanting to do small weddings, nothing major.
So that does it include caterers, tent installers?
Well, I don't
or
expect them to
party
be there
people?
normally throughout the entire thing. Caterers, yes. The catering may even use my driveway, the paved driveway, because if you can see on the map, my home is near, my paved driveway is near the tent location. So it would also be a prime location to set up for caterers or anything like that, depending on if there's a food truck. Just really being flexible with it. I figure 50 vehicles, two guests per vehicle normally, no more than 100 guests.
So coming in and out of the road
Mhm.
on a typical event, 50 guests or 50 vehicles for guests
Mhm.
plus additional vehicles for caterers,
Cater-
etc.
And the tents would be set up prior to it, so they wouldn't be there the day of the event. They should be there the day before the event.
But caterers would
Caterers
typically
would be,
there,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Flower delivery,
Exactly,
Just a
yeah.
band.
And all that's normally there before the guests even start arriving. So they should be well gone before any guests get there, except for the caterers.
Okay. Just wanted to
Yeah.
understand whether or not you wanted to increase that number based on
Well,
the support services that would be
yeah,
needed.
I mean, I don't want to go too big. I like small to medium size events. The larger events, it's a beautiful piece of property, and I think, my wife really wants everyone to enjoy it. But I like the smaller events.
Thank you.
But that question kind of leads to if you someday you change your mind, or your wife changes your mind, and you decide to have a big event,
Right.
you can't have more than, what you're committing to is
Right.
a max of 50.
Exactly. So I would need, if ever, the business, if ever just expands and blows up, and I was speaking with the fire chief, maybe one day a year, once this is approved and I really see how it does, one day I may apply for a change of use and, make the barn part of it, but right now it's not. Right now I keep rabbits in it, so.
Okay, well, that was gonna be my point. If
Yeah.
you go above 50, you're gonna have to come in for a change in
Yeah.
condition, change the use, okay, or the terms of the use. And we'll get to safety a little bit later, and maybe the next one. So, the next one, public safety impacts. There are 3 findings there. I will start it off with, I am concerned about where you show parking, and then there's a walk to the tent.
Yes.
If it's dark, and it could be in March or May or October or whatever, if it's dark, what kind of lighting are you gonna have?
Oh, we're doing solar lighting. I've already got some of those purchases, as a matter of fact. We're gonna do like path solar lights,
Okay,
but no large
these will be
lighting areas.
ground
Yes.
mounted, not big
Correct.
floodlights. and-
Yeah, basically they're pathway lights.
Okay, because that's 2 questions. One is safety and the other one is impact of lights on the
Right.
neighbors. And I think you made a commitment, event staff will direct vehicles and ensure safe, I'm going back one on you.
Yeah, that is fine.
Who's the event staff that's gonna direct traffic?
Well, if needed, I have daughters who are willing to help as far as working for me. They're willing to work for me for a weekend or 2.
Okay,
So yeah, adult daughters, I should say.
okay. Because when you say stuff, event staff will direct,
Yeah.
that becomes a commitment.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, we
there's
would
an
definitely,
issue.
we would want someone, especially at the mouth of the entrance, making sure that traffic can flow in and out easily. Although there is a 500, I think my minimum distance of line of sight is 511 feet. I still would want someone there.
Okay, and you might also talk to the MDOT guy, because I'm not sure, when you talk about directing traffic there.
No, not on the
they can't-
road.
They can't, okay, they
Yeah,
can't stop.
right.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I'm talking about on the property
I
itself.
got you. Okay, public safety, moving on to environmental impacts. There are 4 findings there,
Go back to the public safety for a moment.
okay?
We've talked about the entrance, and are you going to have some signage there saying event entrance? Or?
It'd be temporary, yeah,
Right,
with each
exactly.
event, yes.
Okay.
Now, I do have a sign for, and I'm actually glad you brought up signage because a year ago I bought a Wonderwild Farm sign just for my house, and I didn't know if I needed I think it's 2 foot by 2 foot. I didn't know if I needed permission to put it up or not.
Probably the best guy to ask is the code enforcement guy.
Okay.
He's sort of the king of signs, so he
Okay.
can tell you, what you're allowed
Well,
to have.
that's further down the road, but I was just wondering, but since the signage was brought
I
up.
would go ahead and ask now.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Ask the code enforcement guy now,
Yeah.
so that you're not surprised
Right.
when the time comes. Fair enough, Mr. Thabarge? Signage, code enforcement guy? Okay. Moving on to anything else on the first couple? On to environmental impacts. The proposed use will not result in sedimentation, erosion, or have an adverse impact on water supplies. And there are 4 possible findings there. So it says no erosion or sedimentation, but you're going to, please explain, you've already got a road sort of created.
yes,
But I
yeah.
suspect
The forestry people put that in.
you're saying that's not good enough for somebody's,
I just want to stabilize it and eventually plant grass on it again and just make it all meadow again. Just like they actually had a staging area where my proposed parking is, and grass is starting to grow back there again. But
Okay.
so I want it all to be, meadow parking and meadow drive.
so as you're working, you will follow our building codes rules on erosion control.
Yes.
So if, you have to put up a fence, you have to, there's an erosion control fence and
Right.
all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be taking any soil out as far as erosion control. I'll just be adding grass seed and more soil.
So you're not gonna dig anything,
I
or?
wasn't planning on it, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just planning on adding to what's there, you know, stabilizing it, planting, you know, heavily plant grass.
Okay, just write it down, no so.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything on that, else on that one, guys? If not, moving on to scale and intensity of use. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to physical size, visual impact, intensity of use, and proximity to other structures. And there's 4 findings there. Any questions on that one, folks? And this one will, if the neighbors are concerned,
Mhm.
we will take their concerns, you know, if they say, too noisy, too close to me, whatever it may be. I do have a concern, just looking at a picture, that as you're coming out of your entrance, the lights shine directly across Newellbrook into someone else's house.
Well, not the proposed entrance, it's directly across from the graveyard.
Right.
Yep,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
looking at it on.
Yeah,
Maps.
my current paved driveway does face Roger's house across the street, so we're trying not to, you know, they're great, I love them.
Okay.
We're trying not to interfere with them at all.
I will make an assumption that those in the graveyard at 9:30 at night are either not supposed to be there or will not comply.
Correct.
Okay, so that's scale intensity of use. Was there anything else, gents? So you've kind of made a commitment to 50 vehicles and 100 people.
Correct.
Okay,
And that will be in the contract.
okay. Well, we'll hold you to it. Nobody's gonna go out on Saturday and count.
Right,
But
right.
if you get a complaint that, hey, there's 300 people here or whatever it may be.
That was actually one of my concerns. One of my neighbors I'd never met, whenever I introduced myself and was telling him about it, he was like, "How big? Are you talking 1,000 guests? Are you talking, you know?" And he was very, you know, "How big are we talking?" And I was like, "No, small, 100 guests, 50 cars," and he was fine with it.
Okay,
He'll have a tally sheet.
I won't mention any names.
it is being televised. So noise and hours of operation. The proposed use will be compatible with the existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation. 4 findings here. The operating hours, amplified music announcements are shut down by 9:30. Okay, so the fireworks one, when you come back next time,
Now that is prohibited unless performed by licensed vendor, and licensed vendors would have to do everything through the city, correct?
no, I don't think the town,
Town does not have an ordinance.
it doesn't have a permit or anything
State
like
Okay.
that, so. But what I'm leading to is, when you come to the next meeting, then if you wanna do that, we'll vote on whether we want you to have fireworks.
I can make it simple. Let's just nix that right now.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll just make it fireworks prohibited.
Period.
okay.
Period. Yeah. I'm not crazy about them. Like I said, it's an operating farm, and you know, chickens don't much care for all the noise.
It'll make it much easier with your neighbors, but then,
Yeah.
you can
Exactly.
certainly try. Okay, so then the next one, my question would be on the neighbors. I guess it's less of an issue that you prohibited fireworks. And so you're gonna notify the neighbors,
Yes.
whether it's by email address, you're gonna give them the year schedule, you're gonna give them schedule a notice the week before.
Yeah. And when we're doing once as we get them, I'll email them updates basically.
Okay,
Yeah, all I need is, and they'll provide their email addresses. I'm sure most of them I have their phone numbers.
okay. And at
Yeah.
least 30 days in advance.
Yeah, well, as much advance as we have.
No.
So at least 30, but you know, if it's 6 months in advance, then I'm assuming that would be okay too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're committing to at least 30 days. in
Yes,
advance.
yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's, if you do it 6 months and remind them,
Yeah,
then that's fine. Hey, guys, anything else?
The only comment I have on this one is that I think the last time we had a venue looking for, to have weddings on it was Celebration Tree Farm, I think.
Probably.
And I don't recall whether or not we gave them a restriction on, or what the restriction was on music. whether it was 9, 9:30, 10. I haven't done the homework on that.
There was a restriction, and I don't remember, Georgia, maybe we could just dig out celebration. I think it was probably, there was, and they made a commitment earlier than that. That's something we can decide if we want it to be earlier than 9:30.
There was another one that we approved, it's on Stackpole Road.
It was Belia, what is Belia? Lindsay Belia's,
Yeah.
farm?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's before my time, but we could go back and look at that one as well.
There's two examples,
Yep.
Yeah, I just think it should be equitable.
Yeah,
consistency.
okay. So before that next meeting, we'll try and get you what others have, so you can come in.
Absolutely, yeah.
And commit to it or not. And then, right title and interest, I think we saw a D to Castle Rock Development.
Correct.
Yep.
Any questions on that one? Comments? Financial and technical ability. The applicant has the financial and technical ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with the conditions imposed by the planning board pursuant to. So you've got three costs in there. Parking prep, insurance, permits and fees. Will the parking prep include whatever you're gonna do to the entrance drive?
Well, as far as the loam and the grass seed, yes, but the equipment operating, I'll be doing it myself, so I'll be saving cost on that.
The cost?
Yeah.
So the cost for parking lot, parking prep, the road drive,
Yes.
it's gotta be drive.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Does that include the area which you said was kind of low?
Right, yeah, it's literally, it's gonna be mostly loam, stone, and grass seed.
Okay,
Yeah, not a huge cost.
okay.
And you're doing the work. it
I do the work myself, yeah.
Okay.
I've been a heavy equipment operator since my early 20s.
Okay. Startup funding is secured through private sources, so I'm not too worried about $2,500.
Right.
Give or take, but others? Okay, if it was a bigger project, we'd
Right.
wanna have a bank statement saying you're good for it,
Right.
basically. And then you've got experience and Wonderwall Farms. Just because, if we approve this, doesn't mean we will say you have to be successful.
Well,
I don't want you to think that we're,
I will tell you-
that you'll be succsuccessful because we voted for it.
if you approve it, I'm pretty sure my wife will force the success.
Okay,
Mr.
I mean-
Chairman, on the issue of financial and technical capacity, I suggest you may want to ask to see a copy and keep it in the record of the contract that's gonna be required of
that's a
those
good
people.
point, yeah.
I can bring that,
Copy, please.
yes,
Would you mind sending it to George ahead of,
absolutely,
that way we'll have a chance to look at it before the meeting.
correct, all right.
Thank you, George. Okay, compliance with, we're on to 7.4B, compliance with land use ordinance standards. So, there's two of them, and you've just committed to giving us a copy of the contract you're gonna use. And then the A, though, the venue meets all zoning performance standards, and I sure, I would use land use ordinance standards related to noise, access, frequency, and sanitation. Are we good with that, guys? Okay. Then planning board approval conditions, this is one where we would put, conditions like a copy of the contract and some of the other stuff that we've talked about. And we'd vote on that, on the conditions, and then we'll have a final vote, on conditional use.
Sounds good,
Okay?
all right.
Is there anything else, guys? George, anything else we need to cover that I've missed?
Nope.
Okay, so we won't vote on anything, we voted on the public hearing, so, if you would get that word out, George will give you the standards for the letter and when it has to be mailed and
Actually,
certified.
Mr. Chairman, the notice that was sent, or the sign-off should have indicated that the meeting was being held tonight.
Correct,
So they're on notice and they can, if they were interested, they could come. still hold a public hearing, but I don't think he has to send out a separate notice, public hearing notice.
Let's double check it.
Yeah, and I would kind of like to make I don't think it'll hurt, because you only got
Yeah.
about 12 of them.
Six, I think, six or seven.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel more comfortable, George, if we went ahead and asked you.
Now, do I need to get signed copies again, or just the way I did this? I actually just drove to each of my neighbors and handed them one, and then they signed one for me.
That'd work, I think. If you
Okay.
do the same thing,
Yeah,
that'll work.
absolutely.
And I hate to come up with extra requirements, but that way there's
No questions.
no doubts. And
And
it's
I
not
don't-
that I don't trust you, it's just that.
I don't mind talking to my neighbors anymore.
Okay. Okay, so we're good. We'll see you next month.
Awesome. And, Mr. DeBarge, should I contact you via email, to give you the contract and?
Yep.
Is there a particular standard of notice I need to give them, or just similar to what I did?
Yeah, it's, I think, did I send you a copy of the standard?
I don't remember.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, please make sure you meet that so we don't get caught in something you gave the notice out too late.
Yeah, and I used the website information a lot, so
Okay.
that was very helpful.
And just get their signatures on like you did. so.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay,
All
and
right.
you cannot contact the board.
Right,
All
no.
your communications has to go through Mr. Barge.
Absolutely, sounds
Good to
good.
get. Okay, we'll see you next month.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda, formally read it, is a request for extension of Bowie Hill Phase 2 preliminary approval map 10 lot 38. Public comment one. So this is just, they've asked for a 6-month extension because they haven't gotten their, I think, the DEP approval. So this is not obviously about the merits of the project or anything else. It's,
Right.
do we want to give them a 6-month extension? And I think George gave me things that we should probably make as part of the, and I can make it as part of the motion. We must make the finding the applicants made due progress in preparing the final plan application and pursuing outside agency approvals. I think they've done that. The board must also make findings that no changes to the ordinance have been made that would impact the proposed development. And George, I think in his notes said that that is in fact, there have been no changes that would impact their design. Okay, so then the next one is that none of the amendments to the zoning process from the town meeting impact the proposed development. And he did submit a reason why, which was the DEP protection. So if we're ready, I will make a motion. And I will try to incorporate these 5 things. So I make a motion that we approve a 6-month extension for Bowie Hill Phase 2 preliminary approval on map 10 lot 3B. And that in this motion would include the fact that the planning board made findings that the applicant has made due progress in preparing the final plan application and pursuing outside agency approvals. The vote will include the fact that we notice that identify there are no changes to the ordinance that would impact the proposed development, that the changes to the land use ordinance from April 5, 2025 have no impact on this project, and he did submit an application for the reason for the delay, which is DEP. And so, George, I don't know if you need to put that all in writing, but at least it's on record that we can.
We will put it in writing.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Any additional comments? If you vote to approve, please raise a hand. 4-0. And that's the things we've got on the agenda for this evening. And so the next thing then is the status of the codification effort. And George, I would ask you to, George and I have talked about this, and George will give us an introduction to the codification changes that are recommended by the consultant, and also the process that may be used going forward. The select board is meeting on May 27th, or at their May 27th meeting. The select board will determine the process they want to use. But I think it will be very similar to what George is going to talk to us about tonight. And I think the intent was that we not get too far ahead of the select board, but the chair liked the idea that we're gonna at least get it introduced to us and start the thinking about the process. So a couple weeks ahead of when they will act. So sometime after that May 27th meeting, I would expect guidance from the select board, similar to what they did last year, which is, and George will go through some of the things that how they would like to see this being done, and which of the changes that they want the planning board to take on versus maybe another committee. So George, I turn the podium over to you.
Okay, just for benefit of those who might be watching in the public, the town has a contract with a company called General Code Corporation, and they do codification of ordinances, and the process is to digitize the current ordinance and to go through what they call a editorial and legal analysis, where they look at the verbiage of the ordinance and the provisions to make sure that correcting typos, grammatical errors, inconsistencies within the document, as well as legal consistency with state code requirements. So they've gone through, they've already reorganized the format to the digitized. They did that back in August of last year. They have now completed their editorial and legal analysis and have provided the town with a report that identifies 139 different parts of the land use ordinance that they believe need to be corrected or amended, and they are mostly technical and legal issues. I can give you a sample of a few of them just to give you a sense of what's involved. Question 3 points out the varied use of the terms registered versus licensed professionals. And so they asked the town to pick one and stick with it rather than jumping back and forth, and someone might think they're two different creatures. That's one example. Second one is in the definitions. They suggest that the town update the business service definition to match the SIC manual, which is a standard industrial code, I think it stands for. So there are codes that deal with different industry sectors, and ours is completely outdated. So that's another technical. Currently, the ordinance has definitions for the same thing, but if it's different regulations such as streams. So under shoreland zoning, a stream is defined one way. Under the Natural Resources Protection Act, other streams are defined by certain criteria. And so right now you have two different stream definitions, and one says shoreland zoning. What they are proposing to do is combine those into a single stream definition and then have subheadings, so that you only have one definition of the stream. Under administration and enforcement, the town, there are currently penalty and enforcement provisions in multiple sections, and in part that came about because we incorporated other ordinances into this land use ordinance, but didn't really rework them when we did that back in 2019, I think it was. So for example, the addressing. When the town adopted, like most towns, adopted the E911 requirements where people had to change their addresses, to try to soften the blow, they put in like a $5 violation fee. And then you have other land uses that are $100, and under state law can be far more significant than that. So they've suggested the town consider having a single enforcement provision that applies the same penalties across the board for all zoning violations, and make that consistent with state law. So I've asked the town attorney to look at that and make a recommendation for that. There are typographical errors in the space and bulk requirements table. Question 42 is, and this is something we've identified as the need to clarify. The current ordinance says that access management rules apply to driveway entrances on town roads. But what is a town road? Is a town road a road in town, or is it a road that the town maintains? And so it's unclear if the road commissioner has authority to require a driveway permit in a subdivision, it all depends on whether you classify that as a town road. It's not a town-owned and maintained road. So just clarifying those things, which have been confusing for the staff to know where it is required and isn't, that would be another type of technical. The automobile graveyard and junkyard has an outdated statutory reference. Question 51. Question 58, right now we have lighting standards as a general lighting standard, and then there are site plan review lighting standards. And where do those apply? The ordinance needs to be clear. Where do these different regulations apply? Under subdivision regulations, there's a typo of a missing word. And last one I'll give you is question 78. We currently use the DEP manuals for stormwater, erosion and sedimentation control, and phosphorus management. So those are manuals, what they call best management practices that DEP uses. And the general code people say you can't put that into your ordinance. It's not in ordinance framework. It's a lot of recommendations as opposed to ordinance standards. So I've asked the town attorney to look at that one as well to, number one, make sure that they're enforceable as standards, because we're applying them to subdivisions. But, so these are examples of the technical aspects of this project, and my recommendation has been that you let the staff work through those technical issues between now and July 25th. Everything that goes into general code will come back in a preliminary report with all the proposed changes. We'll have a public participation process where everybody will get to look at all that and then indicate whether you think additional changes need to be made. But it's hard to have a committee process to go through 139 technical questions and issues. So what we're going to propose to the select board is that we, the staff, which would be myself, the town attorney, the code officer, the road commissioner, and the fire chief, go through the ordinance and look at all of these issues and then come up with a consensus response that we will give to general code. They'll put those 139 responses into the draft ordinance that comes back, and then everyone will get a chance to go through that. So that's that aspect of it. So what we have recommended is that the boards focus on what we're calling a set of minor policy issues, and some of those would be like clarifying where does the town want to regulate driveway permits. Probably not on state routes. The DOT issues permits for that. Probably yes in subdivisions, because the board approves drainage plans. And in the same way that you don't want the drainage messed up on the town road, they have a subdivision that was approved by the planning board, and you want to make sure that it's done according to that plan. So those would be the types of minor policy issues to get clarification on. Another one is backlot access. There's just been a huge amount of confusion, and the current ordinance is so confusing, the language of it. That code officers and road commissioners over the past 20 years have interpreted it 5 different ways in how you apply it. So we tried back in, as John, maybe this was before your time, but Alan and Brian were here. We tried to fix that, and it just got bogged down in the political process, and after 3 tries, we gave up. But here is an opportunity to really not change the policies, but really clarify how the process is going to work and who's going to administer it. So it's a minor policy issue, but it is a policy issue that we really need the boards to give the guidance on how to resolve those issues. Next one is campgrounds. As you will recall with leisure campground, is it a campground? Is it an RV park? Is it a mobile home park? The current standards are back to the old days when you had tents, and maybe a camper. But now it's like year-round occupancy. It's more like somewhere, and the ordinance really doesn't clearly establish how the town regulates and campground/RV park. And so we're working with the town attorney to try to get some ideas on how to resolve that. Next one is the buffers. 2 issues that have come up. The first one is, right now, the ordinance requires a 50-foot buffer along a public road if you're putting in a subdivision. But it doesn't have any buffering requirement for the properties on either side of the road that's going in. And so the question becomes, should there be a required buffer for the abutting homes on either side of the road going in, or just for the public road? That's an issue that has come up on a very few, on several projects. So, doesn't matter however the town wants to do it. If it doesn't want to apply it, if it doesn't, that's a policy issue that probably should be explored. And right along that vein, the same issue that comes up almost on every subdivision is, what do you do with your trash containers? And so we have some ideas how to fix that in terms of like getting as John, who's done development in other parts of the country, when you're dealing with a utility company, you have what they call a readiness to serve. So part of the developer's application is you have to contact the utility and they indicate, yes, we can service it or we can't. And so in this case, the waste hauling is a utility service, and so they would have to come in with a letter from Casella saying we're going to pick up at the curb on all the lots in the subdivision, or not. And if they don't, then we can have a standard in the ordinance that says they have to create a trash. They either have to go with a private contractor and have a dumpster, fenced-in dumpster location, or show what the plan is going to be. Right now, there's no mention or any guidance given, so we're just kind of making it up as we go. So this will give consistent, enforceable policies, put them into the ordinance. Again, not a major policy issue, but an important minor one. Noise. I've had reservations ever since I came here that your noise regulations may not be enforceable. And one of the issues is that at the low levels that are there now, I mean, right now I'm 55, maybe 60 decibels. Just a human voice is like 55 decibels. So that's the limit of noise. And so the question becomes, with ambient background noise, is it even measurable? And would it hold up in court if you tried to enforce it? So we're going to take a look at that. The town attorney has recommended 75. I've looked at some ordinances where they have a baseline of, say, 55, 45, and then up to 10 above that under certain conditions that you specify in the ordinance. So we'll be taking a look at that. Again, important policy issue, very rural town, very quiet. People are very concerned about it, but we need to make sure that it's enforceable. And generally, you have to have an expert when you do a sound study. You can't just have someone up with a phone and saying, I measured it. No, they have to do a complete acoustic study for you to take someone to court on it. So that's an issue we're looking at. I'm part-time. You have a 2-week deadline to get an application. You've seen how we've ramped up preparation and follow-up. Most towns, it's either 3 weeks to a month to get on an agenda before you can get in, which gives us time for the processing of applications, notification of abutters. This 2-week timeline, especially where I'm part-time, without any support staff, is just not viable if we get busy. It's been manageable so far, but I'm concerned, and the town is asking me to do more and more work in terms of planning and ordinances and things. So I'm going to propose that it go to 3 weeks instead of 2. Not a big policy change, but it's a policy change. Similarly, right now the ordinance, when a Board of Appeals makes a decision, they have to notify 8 different entities. Applicant, select board, planning board, and the notice requirements are just very way over the top of accountability. So the state has requirements for who you have to notify of a decision, which is usually the applicant, maybe the code officer, so they'll know that it's been approved. But to have 8 different entities have to be notified, we don't have staff to be able to do that kind of thing. And I think that's number 10. Number 11 is non-conforming expansions. As I indicated back with the resource protection update, the current standards for non-conforming uses expansion just have no relationship to Durham's development situation. I've worked in other towns, Falmouth Foreside, for example, where you have these postage stamp lots, you know, and people come in and you had an old cottage back from the 1920s, and now they're putting up a mansion, you know, 3-story, 8,000 square foot house on a 5,000 square foot lot, waterfront views, you know. And so that's where the non-conforming use rules really were designed to deal with, where people are constrained by small lot sizes, tight development. Here you've got 2-acre lot minimum, and houses are, the only time you see an issue is someone with a 5-acre lot builds 24 feet from the property line, and that was done many, many years ago. So there really aren't a lot of non-conforming buildings. The current rules were copied and pasted based on a DEP standard, the 30% rule. And what that was designed for was back when the DEP and the state were trying to get a handle on lake development and waterfront development and lake water quality and scenic views. So what they did was they basically applied a 100-foot setback from the water for any new construction. And any reconstruction, the rule was that they had to move the building back away from the water if possible. Some of these small camp lots you can't. But if they were less than 100 feet from the water, they were going to limit the expansion of that building to 30% to preserve the water quality, the wildlife, the scenic quality of the lake. That's where that 30% rule came in. What is the basis of saying to someone in Durham on a 2-acre lot, you can only expand by 30%? There's no rational basis for that limitation. Then beyond that, you have a conditional use review where you have to find it's going to cause a traffic problem, it's going to cause a noise problem, it's going to be scale and intensity, all those things that you're applying to these venues and stuff. When are you ever going to deny a permit for someone to build a 50% expansion on their house that's 2 feet too close to the line? 5-acre lot, you're going to approve 99.999% of these applications if you apply the conditional use criteria. It serves no purpose. It has no relationship to the actual condition of Durham development. And so what the town attorney and I have talked about is looking at what is the standard practice of how you deal with expansions of non-conforming and put in some standardized language that actually makes sense. So that's, again, a policy issue. And the other one is, so currently you have a 30% limit, conditional use, but then the ordinance says you can go to the Board of Appeals and get more than 30% with no limitation, as long as you prove that you're not polluting the groundwater. Again, what is the rational basis for that rule? There is no rational basis. They just copied and pasted, and maybe at the time they were thinking in terms of aquifer, but again, a single family residential expansion, there's no relationship that says, and that's all the Board of Appeals can review, you know. Is their septic system adequate? It's controlled by the state. So what's the basis you're going to deny it? So we're going to propose a standardized set of criteria for residential non-conforming expansions. And then the town attorney brought up the point that Durham did not vote to opt in to the marijuana regulations for medical, retail, and commercial. So that is not allowed in Durham. However, under the exemptions of state law, small growers for medical purposes can have up to a certain amount of plants for a certain number of patients, and that's exempt from the state rules. So you could have, and there has been cases in Durham, where you have a property owner who has a greenhouse, and they have 5 different medical vendors all growing their plants in that greenhouse. So now you've got that's kind of a loophole in the regulations, and the town attorney has recommended putting in something to regulate that type of a marijuana operation. And then finally, there's going to be a recommendation that there be added to the land use regulations or ordinance a provision that gives the select board the authority to correct typos and errors in the ordinance, so that we don't have to wait for a town meeting. You know, when you're cross-referencing things, sometimes we just updated it, so certain references here, it's now no longer that section. So put a provision in there that gives the select board, by order, kind of like the fee thing, the authority to make corrections, not change policies, not change standards, but simply make corrections to the ordinance without going to a town meeting. So those 13 policy issues,
George,
yeah,
in line with that, tiny homes and trailer parks, the state changed the rules.
Yes, that's
and we're not
part.
in compliance with that. Where do they fall?
Well, I'm putting that in the 139 technical issues, because you've got to follow the state law.
Okay.
And again, we'll have a public process which will look at what you need to do to come into compliance, but you have to come into compliance.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wondered which category it
Yeah,
fell in.
mobile home parks, we do need to make some minor changes on ADUs, and so whatever the state law is, with the town attorney's input, we'll have to make those changes. So, the plan and proposal is to have the staff manage the 139 technical issues, response of the town to those, to code consultants, and then have the boards over, and I talked to the consultants Monday and got a time frame for when this is gonna all work out. So July 25th is the deadline for the technical review, get their responses. That's the staff part that we're gonna be doing. The town, as long as you get the proposed minor policy set to them by the end of the year, which will give us time to work through those issues, they can incorporate it into the codification process. So
Calendar year?
yes, calendar year of 2025, so through December. Then in February, they would, remember town meeting is in June next year, so they would prepare a preliminary draft for the public process for us to review, incorporating all the changes, technical changes from staff, incorporating all of the policy changes from the boards, and they would prepare a preliminary draft. By February, the town would be able to make minor changes to that after that point, based on a more public participation, the public hearing, and then it would go, the final draft would be prepared in May, it would go to town vote in June, and then they would print it and publish it for July. So that's kind of the sequence. So I was operating under the assumption that we had to do those policies by July 25th, which would have been just a nightmare to try to squeeze that in, but we have until the end of the year, and they're going to work with us on that. So as John said, and then I've listed here a bunch of other policies that are more major, such as we've talked about applying contract zoning, not just to solar and not just to large BESS, but to other gravel pits and other uses. So that's a major policy issue that we would begin to address after the codification process. And we've got a list of 8 there that are on that order of magnitude. And then if we can't resolve any of the minor ones that we've taken on, those can get pushed over into that group as well. So I will be doing a presentation basically similar to what we just heard tonight with the select board on May 27th, looking for them to give direction for, number one, are they on board? Does this process make sense to them? Are they good with the time frame, staff delegation of certain things, boards? What boards should be involved in the process of the minor policy issues listed, and hopefully get some direction for them on how to move forward with the project and conclude it successfully.
George, are they contracted to look at the ordinances that were just passed?
We have already sent them the amendments, and they've incorporated them into the draft. Some of their comments, like the historic, have already been addressed,
Okay,
so,
fantastic.
yeah.
So, working through this in my mind, so the staff is gonna, the 139.
Yeah.
You're gonna write the response to that, get it to them by the end of July.
Yep.
So then the 13, obviously waiting for select board guidance on who's gonna do what. I don't see many of those, if any, that are like Conservation Commission, like we did with RP last year, where there was a clear tie, but I guess we'll find out. Who's
There's a
gonna do
couple
what.
that might involve the Board of Appeals, non-conforming uses.
Yeah.
Potentially,
But there's not many, most of them
right.
are this board's purview or category. So who is going to, so at some point in time in June, do you expect us to get guidance from the select board to say, okay, we want you to take on all 13, 10 of the 13, whatever it may be? So for a month there, I assume you guys are gonna be pretty busy, you being the staff, gonna be busy writing up the 139. When do you see the work starting on the 13? And do we shoot for a draft to start taking to the public process in October, November? When do you see those 13 or some part of them being ready to start the public input process, the public review process?
So I would expect at the June meeting, we can report what the select board. Now, also be aware that I think they're intending to organize, I'm not sure, maybe in June, a convention workshop of the leadership of the various boards and commissions, as we did last year and the year before. So if that takes place in June, at the June planning board meeting, I'll be able to report back what their feedback is, plus what the plan is for having input from the other boards and commissions, all the boards and commissions. So I would say that by July, we should be ready. We'll be done the staff project part, and we'll be ready to hit the ground running 1st of July. And I've already prepared some of the pieces, like the back lots and the private way access. We'll be working on the road standards. So I think by July, we'll be ready to present to you some of the policy issues. And then we can kind of work through them as we go forward in August and into September.
So the expectation would be that there would be a draft of any number of those 13 in the fall, and we would take them in groups of all 13, groups of 5, whatever it may be. So have a public input meeting in October for the ones that we think are close to being ready to go. And then, whether it's all 13 or it's some, I don't think we ever want to present 13 in one meeting. I think that could be for the first meeting at least, a little bit challenging, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah. And then at the end of December, codification consultant gets the final draft. I don't know whether final or not, but the final draft from the town. They put it in the codification language. They sent it back in January, February.
Yep.
What happens at that point? I think.
Then you go forward with your standard public hearing. And if we do it early enough, you might want to do more than one, but I'm not sure with the policy issues that we're dealing with that you need to do 2 public hearings. But basically, the boards will be able to review the final draft, and then the board process can make with it, you'll be having public meetings, but you don't have to necessarily schedule a formal public hearing on this. Take public input if it comes, consider it, and then propose through the select board, to general code, any final changes. So for example, last round, solar farms started out at 10 acres, had to go to a contract zoning, then it ended up with select board final determination. After input from the planning board, conservation commission, said 20 acres. So that's a minor change, and when we say minor, it's a matter of how much editorial work do they need to do. So if it's just changing a number, that they can easily do at that point.
I guess I'm still a little confused the difference between and we have time to sort through this.
Yep.
The February public input versus the fall public input. Is there a reason for the fall input?
Yeah, the fall input is part of the policy development process. So typically, the way we do this is we get pretty much policy direction, beginning in late or spring, early summer. We work over the summer doing research, preparing drafts, and if we can't come up with a specific draft policy in ordinance language, then what we do is present options. So, and then you take that out to the public, so kind of like the affordable housing thing, we brought out these concepts and put those through the process rather than drafted ordinance language. And then you took that input and then we drafted it. So the idea of the fall of this year would be either take specific language if it's ready, like on backlots, which is relatively simple, and then, or a set of some policy options on something bigger like solar. And then take the public input, process that, and then draft the language.
So some of them you might have two public input meetings, a fall one.
Yep.
And then a winter one, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and the winter one is actually the review of the final product. So the fall one is to develop the final product. The spring one is to review the final product and make any changes
Before it goes to the select board.
before it goes to the town meeting.
No, okay, back up just a second.
Yep,
So the fall one is like we've done, we'd be the planning board of the fall.
yep,
The winter one is the select board gives it to us for a formal public hearing. What happens is, like last year, I don't know whatever the hell we did last year, but in December, we basically, or January, we kind of said, we finished up, we had our public input, we had another meeting, said this is the final version, best. And here's select board, they looked at it, they sent it back. So you're saying we would still, in that December timeframe, that's what we will have done. We will have put together, by the end of December, we will have a submission to the select board
yep,
for them to say, yes, here's your final draft.
correct.
Planning board, which has come to us because of public.
Here's the planning board recommendation.
So by the end of December, we have to have the planning board draft ready to go.
Right,
Okay, I got it now.
and approved by the select board to go to the consultant.
In January. Right?
They're looking, hopefully we can get this done and not have an extended public participation process in the fall and be able to have the select board by the end of December approve a set of amendments on these minor policy issues to go to.
So in November, we'd have to, the planning board
Yeah,
or whomever would have to send, in November, we would have to send the select board saying, here's our final draft.
yeah. So hopefully what we can do is over the summer, and again, a lot of this is pretty simple stuff. It's just a matter of putting together some rational fixes on, private ways, road standards, those sorts of things. And they're not major policy issues where you're developing a big policy like affordable housing, solar, BESS. So what we would do is hopefully be able to get through between Labor Day and say Thanksgiving, get through a public input process on those things. Beginning of December, have the planning board finalize what we've already, make any changes to what we've presented, and then get it to the select board, and hopefully in their December meeting, they can say, yeah, send it on.
So the January, February, whatever they are, that is the formal public hearing before that would get entered into the warrant.
Well, no, because, and if the select board wants to hold a public hearing, extra public hearing, but the public hearing by law cannot occur more than 7 days, more than 30 days, less than 7 days before the town meeting. And the select board may or may not want to schedule one or more public hearings in that final stage.
So if we find that there's something that needs more work than anticipated, now that we're going to a June public, could that schedule move?
Well, what we would do, what I would propose, is that if anything gets bogged down, can't be resolved, whatever it is, I don't anticipate that on these 13 issues, but if it just gets bogged down, like roads did last time, punt it to after the codification. And the other strategic thing we're proposing is that we have 2 different warrant articles on this. One is the codification of the ordinance without the policy issues integrated. Just fix the current ordinance.
So the 139
The 139, the new format, that's one warrant article. Then have a warrant article with the 13 minor policy changes. So that if that fails for one of them, you still have the codified ordinance.
Okay, I mean, obviously we'll see what happens timing wise.
Yep.
So, I think on a lot of this, the more, and I'm not a big fan of more meetings, but kind of the more public, you get it out to the public, the easier it'll be. I mean, back roads, back lots, private way is, I don't see why that would be any less controversial, other than we get the word out in advance and say.
Again, we're not proposing to substantially change the policy. What happened was it got lost in the weeds in the past. People picked certain things, like some people thought these private ways should be gravel, others thought they should be paved, and then people were picking apart certain language, and it just got so bogged down in the weeds that just couldn't move beyond it.
Yeah, that's what the sales.
And another part of it was former board member Antor Rosa was like saying, we can't just fix this, you gotta fix the whole thing. And now we're fixing the whole thing. We're looking at the definitions of roads, her big problem with it was, just fixing this part of it, it's still all messed up.
Yeah.
That got bogged. So all those reasons it got bogged down. And the process that we've developed over the last 5 years is substantially different and better than it was back then.
Well, I was here for the roads thing where it failed at the whatever. So, and the other thing is, I'm having a discussion where quite truthfully, 99% of this town doesn't care. I mean, it's a little frustrating to me that people didn't come out to the town. We were concerned, but people didn't come to the public input process. People didn't come to the town meeting. So I guess that was good in that it passed easily. But we've got, that's, I guess, my frustration. We can have a lot of meetings and the horses in mud to water, but.
And if you get a lot of input, and there's a lot of interest, you can schedule meetings.
Yep. Okay, well, I've made my editorial comment for this month. And anything other questions for George? If not, I will quickly say June, we may or may not start working on the codification stuff. We'll see what the select board gets through. But for other things, we obviously have Newellbrook, the wedding venue. We've got Replinova will be back, and maybe the nursing home. There is not nursing home, daycare center. The one we approved a couple, 3 or 4 months ago is coming in, or may come in with an amendment to it. So there's at least 3 conditional use changes that are before us, and eventually Bowie Hill and.
Do we have any movement on Ruby Lane? The 4 additional.
Haven't heard anything.
Haven't heard that.
Yeah, so we could very easily this summer find, 2, 4 lots, 13 lots, this about the same amount of work in terms of.
Right.
But I mean, so 2 fairly good sized subdivision projects. So it could be a busy summer. And I don't know if anybody else is planning anything out there. And then the last thing I have, there is a 46 housing unit subdivision going in on Pownell Brown Road, right at the Freeport, Pownell, Durham line. So if you haven't seen that, the Pownell folks are trying to rally the Durham troops, I think, to fight them. But that's just out there, so.
Yeah, they want an ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, I will, if nothing else, take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Please raise a hand to approve, and we are done. That was unanimous, George.
Anybody has a chance to ride into Deer Creek?
I haven't
Right over here.
I haven't seen a couple.
It's looking very nice, actually.
Oh, good. Well, better. $1 million houses in there.
Well, it's crazy.
Good for their assessed value.
I know. And they get like 7 lots sold.
So, wow.
Amazing.
That's why I'm surprised that,